I don't know who, I forget who Richie brings along. So long and short of the story, fast forward, we have the meeting. I just left. I excused myself. And 2 or 3 days, Pete says to me, yeah, he says, do they owe you any more money? He says, yeah. He says, all right, well, why did he say this to me? He said, well, go into the safe, take whatever's owed to you. He says, let's just get out of this restaurant. So Pete, I says, is that the way it's going to go? He says, yeah. He says, it'd be better, he says. So Pete sold me out. I got all my money. And that was the end of it. And they get indicted. They're now extorting the Basiles $15,000 a week. Okay? I leave. Now the Lucchese's are raping these two kids, raping them, beating them up, assaulting them, and taking all their money. How stupid they were.
And where did that get them by doing that?
8 years in jail. Roger Basile on the down low called the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Yeah, of course. That's what they're going to do.
Right. That's what they did. Meanwhile, the restaurant's out of business, and that's the end of it. So look how Pete fucked me and fucked his brother. Because remember, I was an extension of John. When guys would see me, Anthony, they saw John because I had his ear. The guy, what do they call the guy that has the boss's ear?
You got the boss's ear. You're the king, you know.
So they all knew that I had this man's ear.
Hmm. And people can't be close with him because, I mean, out of everyone, you gave the eulogy at his funeral, right?
I was the only one to deliver the eulogy.
Right. That's.
And no, I wasn't wired. There wasn't a bug. None of that shit went on. Okay. I delivered that man's eulogy. I brought his body home, me and Peter. Okay. I crept in the crypt and put Frankie in his casket head to head. Me. And Richie was standing in the background, his brother Richie cursing, you Jew bastard, you did. Yeah. Imagine in the funeral parlor, this garbage pail he has for a brother, Richie Gotti. If anybody should be shelved, and if Jeannie's listening to this thing, you should shelve your brother, or better yet, kill your brother.
Is Richie? He was a made guy.
Well, he's a made guy. He was a skipper, made then skipper. Now he's just probably an associate or whatever, a made member.
You don't really hear much of that.
No, but he has a son, Richie Jr., he's a lot better than his father. So yeah, so that's what happened with that.
All right, this one's from the big man, Anthony. Did you have any dealings inside of in Webster, Mass, when you were in the life?
I was out in Boston, that whole area, Worcester. I don't know where Webster comes in, Leominster, all throughout Mass, but I don't remember the actual town of Webster, anything going on there. Louis, if there's anything you want to add on that you feel like, because we're going to do this, like I said, you don't have to feel like you're leaving anything out, because we're going to have you on again.
I think for now, this is good, Anthony. What do you think?
Yeah, no, going forward, I mean, we can answer a couple of questions if you want, but going forward, if there's a lot more that you have to tell your story. And like I said, you should write a book and tell your story and get it out there, especially when you're saying that Gotti Sr. wanted you to preserve his legacy and everything. I think his legacy is going to always be one of the most notorious gangsters ever to live. Anyways, people are going to have, I don't think how they can knock the guy as far as other than people that are in the life saying, he should have handled things a little bit more quietly once he got into that position. But other than that, I think he's going to go.
Hindsight's always 20/20. How would anybody handle that position?
Well,
and remember the way he got there. The way he got there created everything.
I know, but it was almost like he knew he was going to jail at that point.
He always said that.
I had law enforcement on me like he had. 24/7. You know, we had a big notorious murder that happened up here. And I'm telling you, I know what kind of heat that brings. We had the Manhattan, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, state organized crime, federal task force on us 24/7. They bugged everywhere we went, where I went, listening devices, phones, my cars, houses. There's no escape in that. And the last thing I want to do is go to prison the rest of my life. So you're trying to like not do things very quietly, not, you know, thinking for other people, not to put heat on them. That's the only thing I'm saying. It's like John knew, yeah, I did what I did, and I'm not hiding. I'm not going to be like Chin and walking around in a bathrobe and acting like I'm crazy. This is who I am, and this is who I am. I'm not going to change for nobody. That I think he could have changed. I think he could have just handled it, you know, like they're very secretive. They meet at nighttime. They're not, you know, out in club. You know, like the bosses that were there when I was there, you know, all the names that were notorious.
He was the last year of him being on the street. He did tighten it up a lot. You know, he got friendly with Tommy Gambino. Tommy was making barbecues at the house and stuff. And John was doing all this stuff, but there was no time. You know, like you said, law enforcement was all over the place, and there were so many. Even till this day, there are cooperators that have never been outed. There are people on the down low in all these organized crime families that have never been outed, still providing information, maybe not as much, but still. This NBA case, you have one guy taking a plea already. You know, the first guy that takes a plea, either he's going to cooperate or he wants to beat out the superseder. If there is a superseder, but how does he know there's a superseder? So,
I think with the NBA stuff, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I know for a fact that I was the current at one of those poker games with a high Hall of Fame NBA player that was present, and I ain't gonna say his name, but it was in New York City. And this guy's very high profile name, and it was the same thing being done. And this is just a few years ago. You know, you get invited to a poker game, and you know what? There's going to be a NBA player there. You know, they got food, drink, woman, everything that you could want, just like a casino. So I think there's going to be a lot more of. I think they've been.
I agree. This is the tip of the iceberg. If the government pursues it, if they really go full throttle,
I think you know what's going to happen is they are going to end up cooperating, you know, all that stuff. But you know who I think is going to squash the deal is the NBA organization. You know, they make everything go away nice and quietly. And
100. It's like the referee case. There were 7 other refs in that Dougherty case. It goes away.
Yeah, you can't. They're doing the same thing in football, college basketball, college football. You know, you get a hold of a ref. Ref ain't making all that money like he is. And that's, you know, you target the refs. Maybe you target, you know, the college sports especially. You know what? It's got nothing to do with the Mafia. The Mafia's probably got maybe 2% or 10% of what really what's going on nationwide in all these fixing the games. You know, you got a guy playing out in Michigan somewhere where there's no, you know, Mafia or, you know, Idaho. You know, all you need to do is a quarterback throw an interception, drop the ball, you know, whatever. It's very simply done. And they can all make a little bit of money. And you can't do it on a high level today. I mean, these sports books are all, you got the NBA, they know when there's a, you know, guy, they're betting the under. All of a sudden they're betting on a player, they're coming in with massive amounts of money that the guy's not going to make his prop points, you know, and this and that. That's the red flag right there. And they warned me about it in you know, just like with the MMA stuff coming out now. You see that, right?
Oh yeah, they're all fixed, they're all rigged. Everybody knows somebody, everybody knows something, and that but see what professional sports like Major League Baseball or the NBA or the NFL, this is all America. So they're only going to go so far, like you said. They're not taking out 20 professional ball players. It's not happening. Right. They grab a few, they'll sprinkle it around, and that's it. That's how it goes. So, All right. So listen, Anthony, I'm going to hop off.
All right. Listen,
Um,
coming on. We're gonna have you back on, soon, and
okay. Thank you.
yeah, and yeah, like I said, your story. You should write the book. You should get this story out there as much as possible.